Hello and welcome to the Alchemists Inkwell.
This is your spiritual podcast for grounded people.
I'm Emily.
And I'm KristaLyn.
Mm.
And we're going to be focusing a little bit more on the astrology of this week. There's a lot happening. And if you've been listening to news or social media whatsoever, you may have some questions about certain things that have come up in the headlines and whether they're likely to happen, what it means if they do. And I've been studying these things a little bit, not nearly as much as I would love to. I want to spend like 3 solid days just doing the astrology around this. And I will continue to, but given that we are here today and tomorrow is the new moon. So we are recording this on Monday, the day of the solstice, March 20th.
Equinox.
Yeah, sorry, Equinox. Thank you. Yeah,
I said it like 3 different times as the solstice.
No, favorite thing about being an astrologer, I was like, it's the equinox, equal day, equal night, start of the zodiacal new year. And Dan, my partner this morning was like, happy spring. And I was like, that's right. It's spring. Totally forgot that whole aspect of the situation because I was just looking at charts. So at some point you have to like pull yourself out just a little bit. But aside from that, we also have, by the end of this week, by the time this episode airs, 2 more important things will happen. And I'm opening up my great big book of transits, which is also called an ephemeris, if anybody's interested. And so the first thing that's going to happen is on Friday. I actually have like a thing so I can make sure I get this right because it's like looking at a really big spreadsheet. So on Friday, the 24th, we are going to have Pluto taking their first dip into Aquarius. And one thing that I like to explain about this, but I have a caveat too, is that when Pluto comes into Aquarius, Pluto's only staying until like June. And then, in fact, I can get the exact day. By the end of June, truly by June 12th, Pluto will go back into Capricorn and hang out there and do this willy-wonny sort of dance over the next year or so.
June 12th is a very good day from personal experience. It's fabulous.
Yeah.
It's my birthday.
You're welcome. Happy solar return. Pluto gets the heck out.
I was like, oh, that sounds nice.
Yeah. We'll have to see. Whatever we go through between now and your birthday, you'll get the reprieve of that. I don't want to say that it's not going to be noticeable though, because it is Pluto. And so the nature of Pluto is intensity. The nature of Pluto is destruction and rebirth, right? So I want to acknowledge that we are, going through a societal shift. We already have Saturn having moved into Pisces, and certain things came up regarding social media and restrictions exactly on that day. And so I'm tracking that as well. Side note, if you are concerned in any way about losing track of Emily and or myself, we are on Instagram, YouTube, all the places. Emily is at Like Her Words. I am at The Real KristaLyn. We keep it super consistent, so it's easy to find. Highly recommend doing that because we are in an unstable time with that. But that was noticeable. It happened. And now we're moving into 2 things that I think really speak to the character of the news that came out over the weekend of a certain former leader making claims that may or may not happen on Tuesday. And this is fun because you'll hear this on Wednesday and Thursday. So we're making sort of what?
And they'll know what happened. And we don't know what happened yet.
And we're just saying, hey, the astrology says this, it could be of the nature of. So what's really interesting is we have Aries season beginning today. And I am studying mundane astrology. It does look like it's going to be, for the world, quite an interesting dynamic year. Now, Aries is always going to be dynamic, creative, fire, whatever. But the things that are going on around it are showing us new cycles, lots of new cycles. Mars is going to be moving into Cancer on the, the 26th. So with that, Mars leaves a sign that Mars has been in since August. So that's kind of a relief, but moves into the sign of his fall. So loses a lot of his ability to function as he would. And Mars being Mars, that might not show up as the smoothest transition. Someone did bring up that there was a certain event, January 6, 2021, that was marked by Mars moving into the sign of his detriment, coming out of Aries. So it was Mars at the 29th degree of Aries, moving into Taurus, going from domicile to detriment. In this case, Mars doesn't have essential dignity, so to speak, in Gemini, but will be moving into fall and into his own terms in Cancer. So there may be certain things that happen around that too. We'll have to see, but as usual, it's a big event. It's something to witness and to see. I'm going to encourage everybody, no matter what, be curious about what you learn, and then be focused or even excited about what you can do about it and what you can do with it. Do not give away your power to fear in any case, because you're going to be able to do something.
Yeah, and I appreciate you saying that too. The don't give away your power to fear. So that's been a big theme. Has been a big theme of the energy of this week, as I've tuned into it, of like, okay, like lots of stuff going on. It would be really easy to be afraid. It would be really easy. But my like anyway is the antidote to fear thing, where just do stuff anyway.
Yeah,
and it just helps
anyway. And it's okay if you have feelings of fear, just interview them, let yourself feel them, let them process, acknowledge them, and then say, okay, that being the case, now what?
Yeah, absolutely. So I do want to talk just a little bit about like the way that the energy feels around some of the, specifically the social media stuff, because it feels very personal for a lot of people of the shifting in it. And it's a
all
personal
of my friends
attack
are through social media, and so
it's a personal attack. I mean, that's where you guys found us. Like that's it's such a important and integral part of our society at this point in time, and to have government entities trying to stick their fingers into that feels very much like an attack, and that should rile us up and make us very critical of those that are trying to affect us in all different ways. So there's a lot of that energy coming in. That being said, it's not shutting off all the options, and I think that's what they're trying to make you feel like it is. It's so just know, take the time over the next couple days, over this week, go through and follow creators you love on one platform, on all their other platforms, so you don't lose them. Sign up for mailing lists on a personal level. Krista and I were both discussing how we're going to be doing a lot of stuff via email lists. Basically, my energetic forecast for the week will be now also sent in email, so that you have that as well. Because that's kind of what we're going to.
It feels like the house that's built on stone right now. There's a lot of houses. If you compare social media is a house that perhaps is built on sand. It can be changed without you getting to say much about it. Websites are a little bit Tumblr. I know, poor Tumblr. But it says it's a little bit sturdier when you have your domain, your website. It's not the ideal solution, but it is the thing that we can be most consistent with as we navigate change. So that's
100%.
definitely something to keep in mind. I think our channels with podcasts and YouTube are, for the time being, more safe than many other channels. That's not to say that there isn't dialogue going on around those as well. Trust me, I am tracking the politics, the headlines, closely, the transits closely. Yeah, I make it my job, and it's also the way I cope. So Scorpio moon, I obsess. So it's
my
fine.
Scorpio moon. My Scorpio moon's like, oh, cool, got the information. I'm going to obsess on how I'm going to fix it, and I go that route. So like I immediately have I hopped on with a call with Krista. I'm like, these are the 7 things I'm doing.
Like, what's our strategy? How are we going to do this? What's the best for the people that are with us? So again, we have that in common because we do share a moon, and I love that. And I'm just like, I'm in the whys of it right now, and the hows, and like, if I can understand their strategy, I can anticipate what's going to be the result and then act on that. It's one of the things I'm trying to do. I'm not going to say I'm going to do it perfectly, but we're going to make the best choices that we can make, and with our intuitions, with our resources, as with anybody else. I
will say, my guides have been very reassuring this whole time. Like, my guides have been very like, it's fine.
Yeah,
it's fine.
And it's always going to be. We're going to make a mountain out of a molehill. But I am really proud of us, because we've been saying intuitively and astrologically, when Saturn gets into Pisces, we're going to be deconstructing social media a lot. Something's going to change entirely, and it's happening. So in a sense, hey, go us. That's a little bit exciting to be able to say the energy was there. We picked up on it, which means that we'll pick up on what's coming as well. We'll be all right. You'll have the resources when you need them all the time.
I think that we're going to go towards a crowd-funded, everyone has a stake in the ownership style of social media.
Yeah.
From this. And
Which
I am
we've
all
been,
for that.
yeah,
Like
we've
I'm a
been talking
socialist
about
as
that for a
hell in a
while.
lot of capacities. So I'm like, yeah, everything, everybody.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
I really do.
we've been experimenting with that in our publishing company.
We have.
And so
Yeah.
more news coming on that soon. But that's something that we've been picking up on for about a year now, right?
Uh-huh.
We've been really
Yep.
thinking about it. So
Yeah.
there's that.
We do everything 2 years in advance. And we
Right?
just sit with it
It's
for like 2
always
years.
two. Every
Mhm.
time, like psychically, whenever I say something, I'll be like, this is going to happen. And I'll tell the person who's involved. And usually it's my family because poor them, they're associated with me closely. And then it won't
Or
come
me.
to
It's
pass. And
me
then
too.
your Saturn
Me
return's
also
coming.
multiple times.
Yeah. And then 2 years later, it's like, oh, that. But 2 years is just enough time for someone to forget you said it too. So it's just, this is why
Yeah.
we document.
Yes. Right. That's why you guys get us in your ears.
Yeah. Posterity. Posterity and the
Yeah.
right to be able to say, I told you so. I'm just kidding.
Right.
I will not do
No.
that to anybody.
I do also want to say, and I mentioned this to Krista before we hopped on. I'm also, when you hear this, I will have said this in my energetic forecast for the week. And I
Mhm.
don't typically address publicly things of this magnitude unless I am so pushed to do so
Mhm.
that I'm like, this is a thing. This is like a real thing that's happening. So sometime during this week, honestly, right now, and this is how my gifts manifest, right? So this week, or at present, as we're recording this, the earth feels like it's physically shaking, like it is
Mhm.
physically vibrating and like bumping. Chitty Chitty Bang Bang style. Like if you're going down a bumpy road, like that's what it feels like. Genuinely for me right now. And for the past couple of days, I've been like, what the fuck is this? Like, why am I feeling this? At first, because I just got back from Italy, I was like, oh, it's just back in California. California is obviously very more active tectonically. So I was like, I'm just feeling the earth. That's not it. So I was very much given clarity from my guides of like, nope, that's not it at all. But something earth shifting, earth shaking is going to happen this week. I think it's going to be a couple different things. One honestly might be it feels to me like it's actually going to be an earthquake somewhere, or some sort of seismic event somewhere is actually going to go down sometime this week. And then multiple different worldview, world functioning shifts that are going to happen pretty drastically and very quickly, with us being like, whoa, okay, I guess the world looks totally different like that. It doesn't feel scary, and I just want to say it that way. Like it's not something I'm like, oh, this is terrifying me. It's not. It doesn't feel scary. And on a personal level, what it feels like is kind of as a result of those things or in our own reaction to that, there's this huge settling in of like whatever that thing you've been avoiding doing for whatever reason, all of a sudden you're like, fuck it, I'm going to do it. And you just do this, like no more excuses. The path is open. You're just like, oh, I'm doing it anyway. So like a lot of people, and again, not in a negative way. It's a lot of like, oh, wow, yeah, I hate this relationship. We're over. Like it's like that level of like quick shift thing where you're like, wow, I don't know why I just did that. I've been thinking about that in the back of my head for months and months and months. Now I know it's my highest and best to not be in this, and I just did the thing. That's what it looks like this week energetically. Krista was looking at the astrology for it, being like, yeah, that tracks. Like we're backing that up with stuff, but just keep that in presence of mind. That's I feel it so concretely. I'm willing to say it on public social media platforms because it is that intense. Like I hopped on with Krista. I was like, do you feel this too? Is your earth physically shaking? Like, is it just me? But the earth is shaking.
Yeah. My problem is my personal life is physically shaking, which is, kind of tuning out the rest of the earth for me. It's going to be all right. It always is. I'm watching these dates and I'm like, okay, for the country, this, for me, I don't know. But what we're seeing, I think one of the things that really tracks with that, especially the months and months and months, would you, I'm going to interview your intuition here for a second to support
Go
it with
for it.
astrology.
Love it.
Would you say since like last summer, end of summer?
What
The months and months
feeling?
and months thing that has been put off that you're now going to just do?
Oh, I would say it's probably from more of like a last fall, like last
Like
September.
October? Okay.
Yeah, September, October. Like I feel like it's going to be stuff that started coming up or what came up very intensely in that September, early October window. And you were like, oh, I wish I could do something about this. Or like, I don't want to do something about this right now. Like, I'm just going to ignore it and pretend this doesn't exist. Or it's even like almost a pull of like, oh, I really want to go to that place. I really want to move there. But you're like, oh, I never could. And you just kind of shelved it. It's like that kind of energy that really came to like a very focal, intense energy space in that like end of September, beginning of October.
Yeah. So I'm going to associate that with likely the new moon in Aries, which is followed closely by Mars going into Cancer. So the new moon in Aries is interesting. And I want to point this out for everybody listening. This is, you know, in a blue moon is when you get 2 full moons in 1 month. We're having a situation where we're going to have 2 new moons in Aries in a row. The second one is going to be on April 20th, and it is a solar eclipse. So this new moon in Aries, which is in Aries as the eclipse will be, is kind of giving us this little like prelude or, you know, like a first chapter to a story that is going to have a really poignant shift for 2 reasons. A, solar eclipse in Aries, second new moon in Aries, but the first eclipse of a new cycle coming in. Where we've been in a Taurus Scorpio cycle for a while, we are now gradually going back and forth and moving towards the Aries Libra cycles. So we're going to have an Aries eclipse followed then by a Scorpio eclipse. So you can see how they're kind of going to be dancing between the 2 signs for a little bit. By the end of the year, they'll get that sorted out. But this is the first time we'll be experiencing an eclipse in a new sign since October of 2021. And again, that's Mars ruled, and Mars a couple days later is going to go into his terms in Cancer in the sign of his fall, where the energy may be supportive of just making a decision that has been on your mind for a while. But this is where you would look at where Cancer is in your chart. This is where you would look at where Aries is in your chart and associate those 2 topics together and see what the nature of this decision might be for you. If it tracks, it tracks. Fantastic. We nailed it. Usually in a consultation with someone, I like to really narrow in on what planet's responsible for the feeling or the situation. And then we start doing the timeline. Since this is for everybody, it's a little bit more complicated than that. But that's something, this combination of the Aries ingress with the sun now being exalted in Aries. So the sun is strong now, as strong as the sun has been for a long time, probably since last August, honestly. And now we're coming into the sun being strong, Mars being the ruler of the sun and this new moon and the next new moon / eclipse. And so there's a lot of dynamic, vital, cardinal, fiery stuff happening. It's important to know that this is a time of more action stuff happening. So there's been a time of talk, and now there might be some action, some spontaneity to go with it. And we'll see how that unfolds. And we will continue to, once we know what it looks like, we'll be able to know the nature of what comes next.
Absolutely. And again, this doesn't feel like the boogeyman. So like,
no.
Take some breaths. It's not the boogeyman. It's not coming to get you.
Yep. It's okay to have feelings. It's okay to have frustrations. Let them happen. Let them pass. And then anyway.
I will say it is a really wonderful time to renew your spiritual connection though. Like it's going to come. That's the thing that's going to come in like horns blazing, and you're going to be like, okay, I am way more connected than I was last year at this time. All right, then this is just like whoosh sort of energy coming up. Which enjoy my sound words as descriptions, I guess, because that's what it feels like. So if you haven't necessarily been connecting with your intuition a lot or your guides a lot or your spiritual practice a lot, whatever it is, this is the time to be like, well, I'm going to put my cards on my desk and I'm going to pull them very regularly when stuff comes up, or I'm going to have my journal right here and we're doing channeled writing, or I'm asking my guide stuff in the shower, like bringing them some of that back into your day to day. Now is the time.
Yep,
now
definitely
is
recommend
for sure the time.
Muscle testing. And trusting your
constantly.
gut. Trusting your gut, muscle testing. Those are very Aries related forms of intuition that may be easier to access right now.
Aries is action. So if you're pushed to action, That definitely tracks.
Mhm.
I do want to say we have some exciting stuff coming up as well. Next podcast, you'll get to hear about it. I'm pretty sure. I think.
Yes, I think so.
Big announcements as far as adventuring and such goes, right?
I think so.
I think it's next podcast.
At least
I
by
don't
the
know.
beginning of April, guys. I promise. Yeah.
Which would be pretty close. Yeah, not
Yeah.
next week. Maybe not next podcast, but the following one. But
Yeah.
really close.
Yeah.
We'll see. But that stuff is coming up again in Aries season, a lot of action stuff in that sort of zone as well. So we have just exciting things that are still happening.
Mhm.
And it really helps when things do feel very, I don't want to say out of control, because I don't think that's the current feeling that we're feeling. It's a lot of like shifting, a lot of
Mhm.
decisions being made way above us and us having to figure out what we're doing about it. Look for exciting things. Breadcrumb yourself. Genuinely, it helps so much.
Yep. Yeah,
Mhm.
we're all doing it. And honestly, also know that the things that are happening above you, the energy is the same around you. So finding ways to utilize that in your sphere of influence, where you can make a difference, what you are passionate about, what you are driven towards, those kinds of things are there.
Yeah. I'm excited too, because I get to see Krista in person next week. So
Yeah,
that's like my personal
it.
excitement. Dress warm.
Yeah. I was gonna say, as
You're
long
like,
as you shovel out South Lake Tahoe, I'll be there.
okay, so just a little while I was in Italy, what happened in my town?
Mm.
2 gas station roofs collapsed and exploded because they fell into the pumps and those exploded. Multiple grocery store had roofs collapse. Flooding was incredibly rampant, but now all the roofs are nice because they snowed and all the snow was off of it, or they rained and all the snow fell off of it and all that sort of stuff. But it's been intense. It's all good now. We're gonna still have more snow. There's gonna be snow on the ground. I know it's a shock, but
Oh no, I'm watching the weather and I'm just like, more? Why more?
I know, my poor kids.
Yeah.
They're like, we don't want to shovel anymore. Like, I know. Sorry. Nothing we can do.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was funny. You're like, the sun's is, the most powerful it's been. And I was like, could it come this way?
Yeah.
Could we have that? Just really quick, since you guys are on here, Italy was awesome. Italy was incredible. Lots of channeling, lots of really cool information. I'll share more and more about it over the next podcast. But since I know you guys knew I was going, just to touch on it, it was a really incredible experience. I got to meet a lot of very cool beings that aren't necessarily corporeal in a physical plane. Lots of cool ghosts, lots of cool people that lived in different places throughout time. It was a very fun experience, and it makes me incredibly excited to travel with you all on our retreats, because getting to bring that in just on a personal level is like quadrupled with other people there.
Having someone on the trip with you who knows that you can do that and then will let you talk about what you're picking up on is a really rare gift also. So it's as much a benefit for like us being able to be like, are you guys picking up on this too? As compared to being the one who has to like fall to the back of the group and be like, I'm picking up on this, which has been me more times than I care to count.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, lots of fun stuff coming up in my content and stuff about all of those experiences and travel and stuff as well. But really cool. It was really awesome. So thank you, Krista, for holding down the fort.
I got you.
Well, while I was gone. But just to update you all, it was a really wonderful adventure. So thanks for your support. So you guys, a lot of you wished me well on Patreon and stuff like that. So I just appreciate it. So I wanted to touch on that. Real magical stuff happened. Lots of magical stuff. Of course.
Yeah, as it does.
Which is how we travel. Just do magic things other places.
Yep. Cool.
Yeah. So real quick, we do have a question from Patreon, which is kind of touching on the astrology and the energy. And also this will feel a little bit like past, because again, come on, scroll computer. You guys will be listening to this after the facts, but we wanted to talk about this question because it's pretty neat. Which is basically, do we have any fun, creative traditions for the spring equinox? Or I'm going to say just expand that, since we're past the equinox when you're listening to this, but for Aries season in general, which is the start of the astrological new year.
Yeah.
do you have any fun traditions? Go ahead, Krista.
Yeah. So I don't know if my Virgo midheavens thinks they're fun, but so, I went through all of my like daily tasks and my whole routine from personal life to work life, everything, wrote it all down, organized it, made sure I had time not only to prioritize the people in my life, but the, obligations that I love all of them. So I was just like, these are all the things I do. Here's where they fit, and here's where rest happens, and here's where creativity happens, and here's, like I have time for all these things in a rhythm and in a way that works for me. So I suddenly had like the energy to just do the big brain work on that one. And we cleaned the house, and we came up with some like, it's just some new goals of who do you want to be, check in on that. How are you doing with being who you want to be? There's been a lot of identity exploration with this, and Aries is in my 6th house. But yeah, Emily knows a little bit of it. There's been a lot of exploring identity and exploring like, what identity do you show? What identity do you not show? And do you want to show more of it? How do you find the spaces to do that? And how much does it matter if someone doesn't receive it well, and all those things? So it's a really interesting thing. And of course, naturally tonight, another thing I want to do is a card pull, which will then kind of support the, here's where you should be investing your energy. Here's what you can allow to like settle. And here's what's coming up for you. I focus this Aries card pull on what I can be excited about and where my energy is most effective. That's something that I really like.
Love that. Yeah. So every year with the spring equinox stuff, which is always very close to a new moon, there's a lot of manifesting for me. So I reassess my manifestations. What am I actually working towards, and why? The why is important because oftentimes we end up working towards things we don't understand what we're doing it for. Yeah. So I really check in on my whys during this time of year. That's super important to me. Also, I actually do this in April, so I don't do it in March, but in April, it's important, where I basically check in and do a card pull for the year. So I pull a card for every month of the year. I write down what that card is in my journal, leave the next pages blank. And then every month for the whole year, I check back in on that card that I pulled during April and write out what actually happened. It's a really wonderful tradition. I've done it for years and years and years and years now. It makes my heart happy. And it's a really fun way to get excited about the year ahead. Even though oftentimes you'll pull a card and be like, oh no, this is going to be bad. What is it? It never shows up that way, which is always a really wonderful reminder to me of how energy works and flows, and how my perception of it doesn't have to be always the right perception of what's coming up. I do very intentionally with this card pull. I'm not tuning into like, oh, how is this going to manifest? I want to know how it's going to manifest now. It's just purely the information on the card so I can experience it as it manifests instead of channeling it in. So that's fun for me as well, to like turn myself off and turn my own channeling off to just let the cards tell me stuff. Yeah. So that's a big one. There's always some sort of cleaning or organizing or something that I do this time of year. Usually when I have the energy for it. April is consistently the most dynamic month of the year for me every single year. So sometimes I don't have the energy to clean. Sometimes I do, whatever. Lots of stuff always happens for me in April. Sometimes it's awesome stuff. Sometimes it's very much not awesome stuff, but it all always happens in April for me. So I always look ahead. Like, me and Aries have a tenuous relationship at best. So I kind of always like gear myself up during this time period of being like, okay, what's going to happen in April? What are we doing? And I keep a lot of journaling and put more emphasis back on that. And it's just a renewed spiritual kind of connection time as well. And I always make sure I'm reading something that feels fulfilling during this time. I've consistently, because I like data in a lot of ways, so I can track because of I have reading journals. April is the month where I DNF the most books because they aren't fulfilling, so I'll just chuck them. So I try to really align myself with reading something fulfilling during Aries season for this reason. Yeah. So yeah, those are my big things.
Yep. And one, again, special note for Aries season this year is just the manifestations. You're going to be hearing this after you've done them, I'm sure, but just take an extra note of what you were inspired to think about this time, because the next time we get a new moon, it's going to be in the same sign. and it will be an eclipse. So what you came up with, and I'm kind of glad you're going to hear this after you did it, so you can't like game your own system. What you came up with this time is going to likely come up again during the eclipses, and it's going to set a tone for something that will be unfolding gradually over the next 2 years or so.
Yeah. So yay, that's exciting.
Yeah.
Glad you manifested those things. Good job, you.
Good job.
Great job.
You always know best.
You're so good at it.
That should be one of our Patreon videos one of these weeks. Just to do like a compliment, us complimenting the person who's watching.
Yeah, just a hype session.
Yeah.
On the compliment note, your shirt is fantastic. And I just want to call it out because it's so
life
hilarious.
Is beautiful with my corgi butts.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Krista's wearing a shirt. If you're not watching on the YouTube, it says "Life is Bootyful," and then the arms, like down the sleeves, are little corgi butts, like holding down the sleeves. It's it's great. I love it.
On days when I need to feel extra happy, I put on my "Life is Bootyful" shirt. Short.
It's okay. Yeah. Words have been weird today.
Yeah.
I'm still distracted. We just did right before this, we recorded the bonus video for the patrons, and it's felt weird. So I just was putting out my incense. I do want to mention just really quick, I do have a group reading coming up on Friday. If you want to join, go to my website, Emily Dexter author or Emily Dexter psychic, either one. They take you to the same place. I do have a group reading though that is coming up in that space. So I figured I would mention it here because there's so much energy going on this week. You might feel a little in free fall. If you're not, we'll ground you in. We'll figure out what's going on and channel it back.
Yep. Yeah. And if you do have questions this week, feel free to ask them. If we can always bring them into an episode. And do our best to make sure you guys feel supported that way. Or you could also schedule consultations with us and we can talk with you personally about your situation individually and help you out face to face, which is really wonderful to get to know and meet you guys, and also will be as effective as we can make it for you guys.
And again, our patrons get priority when it comes to questions. So if you're in the Patreon and you ask a question, we'll answer it. Hence what we answered about our traditions. That's the whole idea. Plus we have bonus videos in there. We're going to put up a new poll this week on like episode topics. So you can vote on episode topics for the next month. All sorts of fun patrony benefits. Come hang out with us there. It's great. Yeah. Do you have any other things you want to bring up or talk about on this episode? It feels like there's just so much energy going on that this episode needed to be shorter so that people didn't take too much energy in their day listening to it for some reason. I don't know why.
I'm already over here psyching myself up for the countdown to go make some magic. So I'm like really focused.
Yeah. Okay. Get focused, get ready.
And to everybody this week, just don't forget how powerful you are. Yeah. Again, don't surrender your power to fear. Nope. It's fine.
You got this. And we hope that you take all of this energy and you
go make some
magic. Oh, I'm gonna say it's great.
I'm gonna say it was great too. God, we try.